In this video, you'll go from knowing nothing about PHP to writing real, useful WordPress code in just 10 minutes. We're doing this with WPCodeBox, which makes it easy to write PHP code directly in the WordPress admin panel without having to edit your theme files or manually upload code to your host. By the end of this video, you will have written 3 practical things you can actually use on your site or your client's site. You don't need any PHP experience, just follow along. My name is Kevin. Let's get coding. All right, here we are inside of WPCodeBox, and it's time for a quick crash course in PHP. First, we have the PHP tag. All PHP starts with this line, and it tells WordPress this is PHP code. Next, we have echo. So let's type echo hello world. Echo outputs something. Here it would show the text hello world. Then we have variables. So let's type $name equals WordPress. And then we're going to echo the variable. So echo name. Variables store values. They start with $. In this case, we store the word WordPress in a variable called name and then output it. After variables, we have functions. Let's start by creating a function. So we're going to say function, say hello, and then we're going to echo hello. At the very bottom, we're going to write the function name again. So say underscore hello and close it out. A function contains reusable code, but it doesn't run until you call it. To call it, we write the function's name followed by parentheses. That tells PHP to execute it. You'll use functions a lot. Almost all the code you write will live inside of functions. So we've written a variable, we've written functions. Now we're going to make functions with arguments. So let's start by creating a function again. We're going to say function, greet user, and this time we're going to pass the argument name. This looks just like a variable because we're passing in values. Within the function, we're going to say echo, and we're going to write hi name. After we do that, let's go ahead and call the function, and then we're going to pass the value Alice. Functions can take arguments. An argument is a value you pass to it when you call the function. In this case, we passed the name Alice to the function. The function then uses it and outputs it. Now we're going to create another function, and this time we're going to use return instead of echo. So let's start by saying function get greeting, and then we'll pass the name argument. And then within the function, we're going to say return hi name. Instead of echoing directly inside of the function, you can return a value. We can then store the returned values inside variables. So below our function, we're going to create the variable greeting, and we're going to make it equal to the function get greeting, and we're going to pass the name Bob. Then we're going to echo our greeting. So here the function returns a string, which we then store in the greeting variable, and then we echo it separately. And last for our PHP discussion, we're going to go over if-else statements. So let's start with a variable, and this time we're going to say isAdmin is equal to true. Now let's start our if statement. So we will say if, and in parentheses, we're going to say isAdmin, and then we're going to open the if block. Within the if block, we're going to say echo, hi, you are an admin. Now, right after we close the if statement, we're going to go ahead and open up an else block. And within the else block, we're going to echo, hi, you're not an admin. This is an if-else statement. It checks a condition, and if the condition is true, it runs one block. If not, it runs the other.
Now let's talk about how you actually run code in WordPress with hooks. WordPress has events that run at specific times, like when saving a post, loading the admin panel, outputting a blog post, or just about anything else. To make your code run when one of these events fires, you use a WordPress action or filter hook. Let's start with actions. To use a WordPress action, we'll use the add action function. Add action tells WordPress, when this event happens, run the function I specify. Add action itself is a function, and it takes 2 arguments, the name of the hook and the name of the function you want WordPress to run. For example, let's say we want to insert tracking code into the head of our HTML. WordPress has a hook called WPHead for this. WordPress fires this hook when it's outputting everything between the head tags. So we've already named our function here. Let's go ahead and actually create that function. So we're going to start with function, output tracking code, and we're going to tab to autocomplete our function name. Because it already exists here, WPCodeBox knows the name of that function. And then we're going to open our function, and we're going to say echo. And in this example, we're just going to echo something really quick. So we're going to say echo script console log tracking code goes here. And then we will close our script, and we'll go ahead and close the echo as well. So what this is going to do is once our head tag prints, it's going to echo JavaScript to the console, and it's going to say console log tracking code goes here. Now let's go ahead and look at add filters. Add filter works the same way as add action, but instead of just running your function, it lets you modify the value provided by WordPress. For example, let's say we wanted to add a picture of cheesecake before all of our post content. WordPress has a filter called the content that allows us to do this. So you can see it filters the post content. And now we can create our function to filter the content. So now we're going to write function, add cheesecake, and then we're going to add the content argument, which lets us modify the content that WordPress is going to output for the post. So now let's open our function. And for this example, we're going to use return because we want to return the content to WordPress, not echo it. And we're going to say return image source is equal to cheesecake.jpg. We're going to close our image. And now we're going to add a dot operator. And this dot operator combines the two values that we're going to be adding before and after. So it's going to be adding the cheesecake image, and then we're going to be passing the content parameter to that. So on the front end, this will be the image of the cheesecake followed by the content. Let's go ahead and save this. Now let's enable it. And we're going to go to the front end really quickly. And there we go. We can see the picture of our cheesecake exists before our content. If we go back here and deactivate this and refresh the front end, we'll see that that picture is now gone. So now let's put this all together, and we're going to create some real world code snippets.
So let's go back to WPCodeBox. For our first snippet, we're going to hide the admin bar for non-admin users. So let's create a new snippet. We're going to say function should show admin bar. And then within the function, we're going to return false. And then we're going to use add filter. And we're going to say show admin bar is the filter we're going to use. And should show admin bar is going to return false. So let's go back to the front end, and we can currently see that the admin bar is showing. Let's refresh the page, and we can see that it is no longer showing. For our second snippet, we're going to add tracking code to our head. Now you may remember this function from before, but we're going to recreate it. So we're going to start with function, output tracking code. And instead of echoing the script like we did before, we're actually going to close our PHP. And the reason we're closing our PHP is because Google Tag Manager has a bunch of HTML that we can just insert. Rather than echoing all this, we can just escape the PHP and use regular HTML. So now we're going to copy the HTML and we're going to paste it into our snippet. Then we're going to reopen our PHP tag because now we need to close the function. Last, we're going to go ahead and format this code because we just want it to look a little bit nicer. And then we're going to use add action, WP head, and then call our function. This will insert the tracking code on every page of your site. You can use it for Google Analytics like we did, for Facebook Pixel, or anything else that you would like to add to the header. Let's go ahead and now preview this on the front end. Let's now refresh the page, open up the head again, and there we go. We can see our tracking code. Let's go back to WPCodeBox for our last example. And for this example, we're going to enable SVG uploads. So to start, let's actually go to the media library, and we're going to try to upload an SVG image into our media library. And we can see that it doesn't work. It won't allow us to do that. So let's go back to WPCodeBox. We're going to create a new snippet, and this time it's going to be called enable SVG uploads. We're going to make the function enable SVG uploads for admins, and then we're going to pass the MIMES variable to it. The MIMES variable is a list of file types WordPress currently allows for upload. So now we're going to say if current user can manage options. This checks for a specific capability, which usually belongs to admins. Within our if block, we're going to say MIMES SVG is equal to image SVG plus XML. In doing this, we're adding our SVG to the MIMES list. Next, we're going to return the MIMES. And then at the very end, we're going to add filter. We're going to use the upload MIMES filter. And then we're going to return our function, which is enable SVG uploads for admin. So let's save this. Let's enable it. Let's now go back to the media library, and we're going to try to upload an SVG image again. And there we go. Now it works. If you've made it this far, congratulations. You've just written 3 real-world PHP snippets for WordPress. You hid the admin bar for non-admin users, you added tracking code to the head of your site, and you've enabled SVG uploads. You now understand PHP basics, how WordPress hooks work, and how to write real, useful code. WPCodeBox is the best way to write code in WordPress. It lets you manage your code snippets in one clean interface, organize them by folders, run them conditionally, and even sync your code to the cloud. No more FTP and no more editing theme files. Learn more at WPCodeBox.com. Thank you for watching.